I'll do, so my, okay. Hey, live from Resurrection Lutheran Church, Juneau Live Studio, and the Showrunner Camp. This is our final daily broadcast from the Showrunner Camp, done by our camp crew members today. So, they've had a great week. Have we had a great week, campers?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
So, let me get down from the booth down to the stage. Sorry we're late today. So, if you've been watching all week, thank you for joining us. Tonight is the big concert. Tune in tonight if you're watching online at 7:30 for the big concert, or if you're in town, we'd like to come down and be part of the studio audience. I know we'd love to have you down here to be part of the studio audience. It's a lot of fun if you've not been to a television broadcast. So, hi.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, Brad. Yeah, hello, Brad. So, let me try to turn my back to the audience. So, what we're going to do for the daily broadcast today is that they have been through, I think it's 12 content classes in the program. So we have, for talent today, we have me doing class. This is the last class that we didn't get to. So, and we have on stage with me, we have April Dooley, who's one of the faculty for teaching class, and we have Karen Laufer, who's one of the staff members. She's actually president of Resurrection Lutheran Church. So it's been a long week.
A good week?
Good week, but a long week. And so like I said, we got through all the classes except one class. It's about a half-hour class, but we'll try to do it a little less than that. And the class is on IP rights, and clearance management. Clearance and management, okay? And so who here knows what IP rights are?
You are talking Greek to me?
Yeah, okay. So, and let me just say my background. As I often say, I am jack of all trades, master of none. But actually, this is one of the ones, these two are one of the ones that I actually am master of to a degree, is that I am, among many things, I am an intellectual property attorney. I am an attorney, although not in Alaska, as I always say, and I need to do that. And but I am a attorney in California and Hawaii. I am currently a member of the bar and active in California. In Hawaii, I am on leave, so I don't have to pay the exorbitant bar dues also in Hawaii. Being an intellectual property attorney, I am a registered patent attorney, and so I practice patent law. I do practice intellectual property law, and I also practice a lot of other areas in here. So during this talk today that'll be on YouTube, I want to give my disclaimer that I am not offering legal advice, and if you need advice in the area of any of the areas we talk about, please seek legal advice from a qualified attorney. And you should not rely on any of the advice I give today if you have legal matters or problems. And so I say that you should, if you do not rely on me, and do not sue me if you get into legal problems from any of the advice or any of the things I tell you today that I do this. But I do practice in this area. So let's first go through what intellectual property is, okay? So intellectual property is, first of all, you probably have heard of property, and so there's different kinds of property. So who can name a type of property that the law recognizes?
Your house.
Right, and that would be, the house itself, if it's attached to the land, is real property, right? So that's real property. Another kind of property?
Your jewelry.
Personal property.
Yeah.
So that's personal property, and the law recognizes that. So you can have an interest in personal property. You buy something at a store, and that's personal property. So those are two kinds of property people have, right? So intellectual property is property that is intangible generally. You can't touch it, but it definitely has value. And so the law recognizes a number of types of intellectual property. So what kind of intellectual property might you have heard of?
I was going to say a song.
Okay, so music. Music can be protected a couple ways. One you probably have heard of is copyright law. So that's one. So we're going to talk about copyright law. And another one, what other kinds of intellectual property might you have heard of?
A computer program, maybe?
That would also be copyright law. How about another kind that maybe has a name of something, protects a name maybe?
Oh, a trademark? type
Trademark
thing?
law, so
Yeah.
that could be TM, it might be circle R, so that's trademark
What
law.
about these, like these TikTok people on, and internet?
So that'd be copyright law. So how about if you invent something?
Oh, inventor.
So what kind of law? Patent law, so that'd be
Yeah.
patent law. So patent law, like patent pending, right?
Right.
So we'll talk about what patent law. So that's patent law. And there's one other kind of law that's recognized. Actually, there's a weird one we'll talk about. I'll mention that. That's semiconductor. Semiconductor.
Semiconductor.
There's a
Well,
special.
you never got that.
Yeah, they were.
On Jeopardy.
Yeah, the Congress created a special thing to protect semiconductor designs. But the last one is trade secrets. Trade secrets.
secrets.
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yes,
Yeah,
you're
oh,
right.
there you go.
Trade secrets.
Yeah.
Okay, trade secrets. Okay, so this is intellectual property law. Covers these things. So we'll start with actually patent law. So patent law is the strongest type of intellectual property. And so if you get a patent, how long is it good for?
75 years?
What? Oh, 17 years.
17 years.
That's it?
Oh, maybe it's changed to 20 years. I think it's 20 years now. So, but a patent, if you get a patent on an invention, you're the only one allowed to exercise the patent, okay? And you can, basically what it does is it allows you to prevent others from practicing the patent, okay?
Forever?
For 20 years.
Oh, for 20 years.
For 20 years. And so, do you have to make it if you have the patent?
Right.
Do you have to make it yourself? Do you have to actually practice the patent?
No, you don't.
You don't.
No.
And so you can get a patent and you can buy a patent and then you can stop anyone else from making it.
Right.
And so that's why it's a limited amount of time to do that. And so, and a patent is very specific. So you get a patent and then a patent comes with a disclosure and claims. So the exchange for getting a patent is that you write a patent application and it has in there exactly how to make the patent. So it describes, you have a disclosure that says, in order to practice this patent, you have to describe exactly everything you do to make the patent, and that's out in the world. And then there's claims at the end, and the claims are like, in real estate, they'd be like, my land goes from here to here to here to here, and that's my real estate claim. In a patent, the claim says, in order to make my thing is that you have to, a screw has so many turns here, and it goes here, and it goes here, and that's my invention. So then if I want to make another screw, then I say, well, okay, I have to do this. So then I know exactly what I would have to do to not infringe on your invention, right? And so if the thing's like a drug, it says, I have to have this molecule, and this molecule, and that's my patent, right? And so you have to go to law. You have to figure out how to write patents, and you have to get trained. You have to be an attorney to practice before the Patent and Trademark Office. The answer is no. There are patent agents, but you have to take an exam, and it's a one-day exam, and then you have to get all this stuff to become a patent agent or a patent attorney. So if you happen to be an attorney and you take the exam and pass, then you're a patent attorney. If you take the exam and you're not an attorney, then you're a patent agent. And that only means that you're allowed to represent somebody in front of the Patent and Trademark Office, okay? So very low passing rate, like 30% of those who study for it. There's a book called The Manual of Patent Examination and Procedure, and it's like that big, and so it's, kind of complicated and all that. So all patent agents and patent attorneys have to be engineers, scientists, or something, computer scientists or something, because you have to do that. So I am an electrical engineer. My first wife, the first Karen S. Perkins, was a biologist. And so that was how she was also a patent attorney. Okay? Okay, so that's patent law, the strongest but shortest period of time to get a patent. Okay, the next thing, let's talk about copyrights. So a copyright. So what do you have to do to get a copyright?
You have to register it, I assume.
You don't. So, U.S. a number of years ago, maybe it was 15, 20 years ago, adopted the Bern Convention from Bern, Switzerland, which said that as soon as you, in some ways, record or in some ways publish, or in some ways it can be, you reduce something to a writing or a recording or something of your original work, you have a copyright. Now, if you would like to put on notice to the world that you have a copyright so you can get damages from them, then you can record it by going to the Copyright Office, okay? But just the act of, in some ways, making a copy of it or something like that so that you have something, that creates your copyright, okay? And so you don't need to go necessarily and do it. But if you want to be able to collect damages or you're going to sue somebody, before you sue them, you need to go register at the Copyright Office. And how complicated is that? Not so complicated. You can go to the website and you can prepare a recording of it if it's a book, or if it's a recording, and you can send it off to them. And
So you could like create a YouTube.
that does it.
That does it.
That does
Okay.
it. So, and if I'm doing a poem, I write the poem down. Boom, I have a copyright. So, and what is the correct? And it used to be you had to have the notice on the thing in an exact matter, but the Berne Convention said you don't have to do that. But generally, the copyright notice should have the word copyright or a circle C, and then the year of your copyright, and then your name, okay? And so that would be a copyright notice, letting people know that this work is, you're intending to copyright the work, okay? How long is a copyright good for? Well, I'm not sure I remember anymore. I think it's like 30 years plus the life of the author. But then Disney petitioned Congress to, when Mickey Mouse was about to run out, they petitioned, made it longer. And so there's, it's quite long, but things are starting to run out now. And so there are things falling in the public domain. A lot of movies are coming in the public domain and books.
A lot of the Beatles songs.
So
A lot of the Rolling Stones.
how do you infringe a copyright? So patents, by the way, you don't have to copy anything in the patent. If you just happen to make that screw we talked about, even if you knew nothing about the screw, that would still infringe it because you have a right to do that, right? To stop somebody from making a screw. Copyrights, what do you have to do to infringe a copyright?
I would assume try to make money off of that. So
Or
like
you actually have to copy it. So in other words, if I were to sit down and write Gone with the Wind, and I never read or saw Gone with the Wind, or I had monkeys typing, and they happened to type Gone with the Wind, no copyright infringement, because you have to copy something. So if you've ever heard of clean rooming a software, when companies want to make a copy, want to do the same thing a piece of software does, they will put engineers in a room that have no access to the other guy's software. And if they come up with the same software program, even if it turns out they pretty much copy it, as long as they can prove they did not copy it, then it's not an infringement of the copyright.
Wow.
Okay, so that's copyright law. So protect somebody from copying your work. Okay, that's copyright. Trademarks. So what does a trademark do?
It protects you as a person or an image.
So actually, trademarks are meant to protect consumers as to the source of goods and services, not the owner. It may have a benefit to Ford, but it's really meant that when you go out and buy a Ford, you're getting a Ford product, or you're getting a McDonald's hamburger. So it's meant to protect the world as the source of goods and services. So that's what it's there for. So if a trademark becomes generic for a product, then you can lose it. So one of my first job out of law school was for Xerox. And so boy, at Xerox, you did not want to say, make me a Xerox, because it was not a Xerox. It was a xerographic copy. Yeah. Make me a xerographic copy. Because things that were trademarks were refrigerators, elevators, aspirin and things like that, and they lost those trademarks because they became a whatever. So trademarks are supposed to be an adverb modifying a noun. Right. So you want to make sure that, so people that do that, you want to make sure that they're used as an adjective modifying a noun. So trademarks are, but they protect the consumer as the source of goods and services. And so they have a benefit of the owner, but they are not for that purpose. They're to help do that. So Okay, so that's trademark law. And do you need to register a trademark?
I would say yes.
No, you don't.
You
So
don't?
you establish a trademark by using it in commerce, and so you can get a local trademark by using it locally. You can get a straight trademark by using it statewide. You establish a federal trademark by using it in interstate commerce, and then you can choose to register it. And so an unregistered trademark, you put a little TM next to it, and then when you register it, which before the Patent and Trademark Office, then you can put a little circle R right next to it. Okay.
It's registered.
So, but if you create a trademark, then put a little TM next to it. And you only need to do that the first time you use it in the document or website. You don't need to keep using it every single time. Just put, and the idea is put somebody on notice that you think that's your trademark. So, do you need to do, how do you do trademark search? Well, in the old days, there you can go to the trademark office and you can type it in. How do you do it these days? Google it.
Google it.
Google it, you know. And so when I come up with a trademark like Showrunner Camp, I go in and do it on the internet. Does anyone else using Showrunner Camp? And if they don't, I go straight to Network Solutions, which I do, and I register the org and the net and the com. You know, if I do that, and then I start putting it in the website, and I put TM on my logo and a TM on my whatever right away. You know, and then I have a trademark, and maybe someday I might bother registering it. And registration you can do yourself, but I have a trademark attorney back in the East Coast that does those things for me. Okay, trademarks. Oh, the thing patent pending, by the way. Is that important to use? Means
Yes.
nothing.
Well,
It means nothing. If people think they should put it on there, means nothing. It has no legal significance.
oh yeah.
It has no legal significance.
It doesn't warn
Sounds
somebody.
important.
It doesn't warn somebody that you've already
Have a patent application on file. The courts have held it doesn't, not really warn you. So you get that patent, you don't have anything. So patent pending means nothing. Okay. Okay, trademarks. What are trademarks? I mean, not trademarks, trade secrets.
Something like Mrs. Fields cookies, a recipe.
Right, and the secret for Coke.
Yeah.
So do you register them? Do you do anything?
I would think you'd have to protect it, no?
What do? Keep it secret.
Keep it secret.
Once it's not secret, it's not a trade secret. That's it. It's not.
So it's really no big deal.
Well, it's a big deal in the fact you want to make sure you never disclose it without a non-disclosure agreement. So you just got to make sure you protect it. If you want to sue somebody for violating it, you got to show that you always never disclosed it without a non-disclosure agreement, and that you kept it in a safe, and that you did all the things to keep it secret, and you treated it like a secret. But other than that, there's no the law recognizes it, but not there's nothing else other than just being careful with it. So it's often people will make an invention and they go, patent 20 years, trade secret forever, but can we keep it secret? And so there's a big debate about what we do. So we often think about in the IP world, what do we want to do about something? Okay, so now you now know more than most people in the world about intellectual property law. And these things are federal, by the way, and so patent in the United States only works in the United States. But you can take your patent and file it in Europe. There's a European patent office. You can file in countries. You can file in Japan. And how much does all this cost? A lot. A patent for anything complicated, the patent attorney can cost anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 to $50,000 to write the patent. Trademarks, not as much. That's like $4,000 or $5,000. Copyrights you should do yourself, and so but patents are pretty expensive to get, and patent attorneys charge a lot of money. So Karen, that's why Karen keeps going, take the bar or somewhere, or start writing patents again, because you make a lot of money writing patents. So, okay. That's that. So let's talk about studio clearances and what we do in the studio. First off, if you're on the internet, by the way, and you want to use stuff you want to put on your website or anything like that, a photo or anything like that, do not take things off the internet and republish them. First, you think, oh, they'll never find me, but there are all these bots now that look for photos. And if you take somebody's photo you find on a website or somebody's artwork or logo, they will find you. And you'll get this letter saying, you've used our photo. And it's not like they say, just take it down. They say, you now owe me $50 or $100, and then they will hound you until they get that money from you. So do not just take things off the internet. Everything we do, we do for years. I go to Shutterstock as a place you can go. I also go to Environ to get stuff, and I buy content. Now there's little prices depending on what you do on it, but it's not that expensive, you know. And if you do things at the church, I have a license we use to get that stuff. So all the material you see on the website, all the cute little photos and logos and stuff we do, we have a license to get 10 images a month. And, you know, and so that's what we do. And so we only use stuff we pay for. And that license allows us to republish on the web and things like that. And we use to make logos. And so all the cute stuff we do, we pay for. And so, and that way, if they come after us, I say I show my license, you know, or I send off a license.
The clip art that we put on the PowerPoint presentation.
Sundays and Seasons.
Yes.
And we have a license. Right. So that's the first thing is just, you know, you cannot just use stuff you find on the web. So don't do a search for cute photos of puppies and then put it out, because the fact is, yeah, and you can look for a royalty-free site, but make sure it really is. Some people scam by claiming they have a royalty-free site, but it's actually not, and then somebody will still come after you. And so then people make a lot of money by doing those bots looking for stuff, and they come after you. So, you know, or use your own photos, okay? Okay, now, clearance and copyright. So, music is not free. Artists deserve money for their music, right? And that's true for both performing in a venue, so just performing to an audience, as well as recording and broadcasting on the internet. So, the church, first of all, people think things at churches, there's exceptions. And there is one exception. Congress passed an exception saying, music played during a church service at a church can be accepted from that. And so that is true. But most churches, for church music, like the hymns and things like that, do pay for it. So we pay for some things from Sundays and Seasons, which is a Lutheran thing, but most churches buy something called one license. And so we have that also, and that covers most of our hymns and things like that at church. But for example, Christmas music is generally not covered by that. So, and the way people get music you hear in a restaurant, in a shopping mall, or in here when we do our concerts is covered by 4 different services, and those services do have automatic licensing for most songs. And those services have been around a long time. You may have heard them. ASCAP, BMI, and the new one is CSAC, okay? And so we have a license through something called Worship Cast and Worship Com. And so we pay a license each year. They're not inexpensive, but they're for churches. And one of them covers our performance in here, and they cover all performances in here. And so we record when I have the list from Colette. She just texted it to me before we came in here. And so we can play all the music they're covered by those, and we look them up, and we send them to them, and then they get a portion, and we pay about $1,000 a year for both the performance and the webcasting license out of the church on Juneau Live. And that covers all those. But and some things are still not in there. We can go look in there and you find some artists just don't sign up for those. And then, then theoretically either we have to contact the performer and see if they'll give us a license, or we don't use that song. So it covers 95% or 98% of the songs in there. So we make sure that we are licensed performing here. A lot of people don't do that, but it's really not okay to do that, not do that.
We have a performance tonight.
Right.
From an individual that wrote a song. He's premiering it tonight.
Yep.
So that is his copyright, correct?
Right. So let's talk about that. So when we talk about first bands that are covering, like Colette's band, High Cost of Living, she's doing covers. So we got her list. So we'll clear those songs we covered on our clearance, and then we have to put them in and let that company know that we're playing them, and they get some money will go to those bands we cover tonight. So that's how we cover that for both performance and the stuff on the internet. For the bands that are, then the other issue is clearance for people that are appearing and playing music. So everybody that comes into the studio, generally for performance stuff. Now, let's just mention, people come in here for worship, and we don't ask them to sign something, but we do generally have notices posted that they might, incidentally appear, and that's the law has said that's good enough for that kind of stuff and for the worship leaders. But for the studio audience tonight, that may well appear on camera, we get them all to sign a one-page release. And the one-page release that says, I'm aware that I'm coming into a studio audience, I may incidentally appear on camera, and I'm okay with that. So, but all people that perform in the studio sign a 2-page release that says, hey, I understand that I am performing in the church tonight, and that I will be creating copyright material. And I grant Juneau Live Studio and Resurrection Lutheran Church a license for whatever copyright material I play for the use for this performance, and that I'm not signing over the rights to the song or anything else, but only for this performance. And I trust that they will use it in a manner, whatever to do in whatever that. So that, and for this copyrighted work, we have a license just for this performance of that work, and that we will, whatever. And we say that we will use it in a respectful manner, and we will not use it in a manner that would be derogatory for them. So otherwise, they don't perform. If we don't get releases from everybody that comes in tonight, then they don't perform or they can't come into the studio. So we don't get any trouble with that.
Boy.
Okay? And so
I bet
one,
our showrunners are surprised that not only is there all this technical things, but there's all this legal issues and everything
right. And
else.
so I'm going to cover one more little issue and we'll be done today,
Yeah.
which is standards and practices. Who has heard the term standards and practices?
That I have heard.
Right, standards and practices. Most of you have heard that. Is that all television networks and television stations and even little Juneau Live Studio has a standards and practice guide. And what that is a set of guidelines. If you're going to allow the public to come in here and whatever, is you should have a standards and practice guide that says what you consider acceptable to be broadcast out of your studio. And so we have a standards and practice guide, and most people will be surprised to see, and that is the thing that says, we don't want you to say bad words, or we don't want you to put out pornography, or we don't want you to put out political messages that would be, whatever. And most people think, well, my God, a church, well, they probably don't allow all kinds of things like that. But the fact is, our standards and practice guide is pretty much like a public broadcast station. We don't want use of derogatory language to any group or denigrate anyone else, but we don't prohibit the use of strong language or whatever else if it's used within the context of something that would be meaningful. Obviously, we don't permit pornography like that, but neither is a public television station or public radio station. So our standards and practice is pretty vanilla, and and so if something fits in the context of what they're doing, that's okay. So, but we don't. And then political views generally, we don't. We're not like most public broadcast stations. We're not doing political views. But those old rules from the 80s and 90s of equal time are no longer there. But we don't tend to let the facility used as a political platform for things. Especially since Juneau is one of those places where there are strong political views on both sides, and so is the churches. So we don't generally have people do things like that in here. So. But our standard practice guide, and so all these things are available online. All our documents we use, standards and practice guide, our releases are all available to the public, so you can see what it looks like for what we're doing here. So I think that was all I wanted to talk about how a studio needs to legally operate and the things we need to do to make sure that we stay within the law at all times, and we don't want to, being a church especially, we don't want to be violating the law. And so we are very careful, including groups that come in here to shoot other things that, the theater groups that come in here and the other groups, we still we have them follow, we collect releases, and we help make sure we're covered under all the things they do. So
Wonderful information.
So thank you for listening today on this. So this was our final broadcast from this Showrunner Camp. I want to mention that we have a concert tonight at 7:30, and our next camp are coming up right away. This finishes this year of the Youth Activity Board grant. We want to thank the Youth Activity Board for making this camp available, but our next camp is in a mere 5 weeks away, is on August 7th through the 11th, and we already have people registering for it, but I'm sure there'll be room for people in that camp. And the students that were in this camp, we did the postmortem today, and they had a good time. I think some of them are coming back to either take the camp again or help assist us in doing the next camp. And so that'll be an exciting camp on that with another concert at the end of it. So please, it's the week before school starts. And then there is the second camp for this fiscal year will be in spring break. And you can go online, showrunnercamp.org, and you can see all the registration materials, flyers, and everything about the camp. And we hope to see you here if you're interested, or call and email us. So thank you. Thank you for joining us for the 3:30 broadcast. Bye.